By chance, I met this woman, Ashley, who told me she was the owner of a popular fancy restaurant and invited me to visit. I'm not much of a food connoisseur. My taste buds aren't that refined. I kept refusing because a fancy restaurant just didn't seem like my style, but she persisted, saying, "I won't be satisfied otherwise," which made me think of our usual mini reunion. It's been over 10 years since we graduated from high school. We were a close-knit group of classmates who gathered about once a year. I thought it would be a good idea to use her restaurant for our mini reunion. Of course, I said we would pay for the food and drinks. 5 guests, if Mike is coming, then. She even offered to let us use it for free, but I insisted on paying. I set a budget and reserved a private room at that price. That Oakwood place, right? I'm surprised you managed to book it. When I told one of the reunion members, Jessica, she was quite shocked. The Oakwood I had booked turned out to be a highly popular place with a 3-year waiting list for reservations. Incidentally, back in high school, there was a misunderstanding that Jessica and I were dating. Well, we weren't unpleasant to each other. We got along, in a way. But whenever we met, we always ended up arguing. Yet, even after 10 years, we still keep in touch. It's what you might call a complicated relationship. That's what I've always thought. I've heard it's a fancy place, but places like that can be disappointing. Here we go again. She started criticizing my choice. I could picture her making a feisty face on the other side of the phone. "Don't come if you don't want to. I'll go, because..." She hesitated. I knew why. Because this year is special, after all. While it was a regular reunion, this time was not just any mini reunion. Still, it's weird, isn't it? She was fixated on how I chose and managed to book this restaurant. Because Mike, you prefer more casual places, right? She sensed there was something more to it. Her intuition was not to be underestimated. But given the circumstances, I couldn't just openly talk about it. Persistent, aren't you? It doesn't matter either way. I managed to dodge the question. The circumstances I didn't share even with my complicated friend. My unexpected encounter with Ashley, the young owner of the restaurant. I work on the manufacturing line at a commercial kitchen equipment factory, and I usually finish work on time due to my shift schedule. But about 10 days ago, that night, I had to work overtime due to a large order. Since the next day was a day off, I ended up going out for drinks and dinner with my colleagues. That's why I was walking home late, and it was just after 11 p.m. when I passed by a playground near my house. As I strolled by, slightly tipsy, I sensed someone in the corner of the park. I could hear voices and, under the nearby street light, make out the faint outlines of 2 figures. It was a man and a woman, one-on-one. I assumed it was just a young couple getting cozy in the park at night. I was single and didn't have a girlfriend. I was curious, and part of me was even a bit excited at the thought that they might start a romantic scene. But I didn't want to witness that, so I decided to quickly walk by. However, the next moment, the mumbling voices suddenly turned into a scream close to a cry for help from the woman. It was a clear call for help. I involuntarily stopped in my tracks and looked towards the park. The couple was scuffling. The woman pushed the man away. The man, who fell on his buttocks, looked up at the woman and yelled something. As I stood there watching, the woman ran towards me. Meanwhile, I noticed something shiny in the hand of the man sitting on the ground. A knife. It was definitely some kind of blade. I didn't know the details, but it was clear there was a violent dispute. I was just a passerby. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't just ignore it either. While I was thinking about what to do, my body, embarrassingly, froze as if I was petrified, unable to move. Then, the woman rushed over and clung to me. Instinctively, I shouted, "Hey you," at the manual, At that, the man flinched and then ran off as if he was rolling away. I watched the man's retreating figure in a daze. It seemed unlikely that the man would return, and I even felt grateful that he had run away. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not confident in my physical strength. If he had come at me, I wouldn't have stood a chance. "Thank you very much," the woman said, bringing me back to reality. She was dressed casually in jeans, and she looked about my age or slightly older. This woman was Ashley, the young owner of the restaurant. "Are you okay? Any injuries?" "Yes, thanks to you, I'm fine," she said, combing her long black hair that had become disheveled with her fingers. I looked in the direction the man had fled and turned back to her, asking, "Who was that guy? Shouldn't we call the police?" She then looked down, sighed, and her shoulders slumped. I escorted her to a safe place where there were more people around. On the way, she shared her story with me. That man was a former apprentice chef at the restaurant where she worked as a young owner. He was inept and constantly got scolded by his seniors and the head chef, so she had intervened on his behalf once out of pity. However, he misunderstood her kindness as personal interest in him. At first, he was just overly friendly at work, but then he started asking her out on dates and waiting for her after work, escalating his behavior. Distressed, she had a meeting with her father, who was also the owner of the restaurant. There, she made it clear to the man that she had no romantic feelings for him. Following that, the man quit the restaurant. That was supposed to be the end of it. But tonight, somehow he knew I was visiting a friend and suddenly approached me on my way back. That's what led to the commotion. Fortunately, she wasn't injured, and since the man was timid by nature, they decided to have her father sternly reprimand him again. They didn't want to involve the police because it could affect the restaurant's reputation. I couldn't help but worry if a timid person like him might cause more trouble later, but I decided not to interfere further. As we parted, she invited me to her restaurant as a gesture of gratitude. "Well, maybe some other time," I replied, intending it as a mere formality, and we exchanged contact information. "Definitely, I'll be waiting," she said. She looked at me with tearful eyes and said. A few days later, she contacted me and invited me back to the inn. I was hesitant about the formality of it all and didn't think the fancy restaurant was my style, so I declined. "Please let me thank you. After all, Mike, you're my life's savior." Eventually, being elevated to the status of a lifesaver, I was at my wit's end. Despite my repeated attempts to decline, she persisted with, "I won't be satisfied otherwise." That led me to the idea of hosting our usual mini reunion at her restaurant. On the day of the mini reunion, the group consisted of me, Jessica, who was once mistaken for my girlfriend, and 3 others, 2 men and 1 woman, making a total of 5. We met at the nearest station and headed to the restaurant, but the grand entrance alone intimidated all 5 of us. It feels out of place, like I might wet my pants. In an era of accessibility, this threshold is too high. I don't even know how to order wine. My heart is full before my stomach is. Voices of unease came from everyone. I, too, wanted to run away if possible. But, as it turned out, I was the organizer this time. Gathering my courage, I led the way through the gate. After I gave my name for the reservation, a receptionist in a nice suit guided us to a private room. Once we were inside the private room, it was exclusively ours. This helped ease everyone's tension a bit. Tyler must be freaking out being brought to a place like this, Jessica whispered, still seemingly nervous. I whispered back, "It's fine to experience this once in a lifetime." "Oh wait, it's not just once in a lifetime, is it?" Then everyone looked at each other and burst into laughter. Everyone burst into laughter, not because Jessica and I were whispering. It was because of what I said about it not being once in a lifetime for Tyler. Tyler was the sixth member of our group who was supposed to be here. 2 years ago, he suddenly passed away in a traffic accident, another friend of ours. This mini reunion was special not just as a tradition, but also as the third anniversary of his passing. It might be disrespectful to laugh about Tyler, but we've come to a point where we can. Finally. Soon, drinks and food were served, and the reunion, doubling as a memorial for Tyler, began. 2 of the 3 other attendees, a bit shyly, announced they were a couple. The remaining man, Ethan, congratulated them, saying Tyler would be surprised to see them outdoing me and Jessica. What do you mean, outdoing me and Jess? Yeah, there's nothing going on between Mike and me. Jessica and I objected in unison, while Ethan just grinned. This Ethan. In high school, he was one of those who firmly believed Jessica and I were a couple. Even now. But it was Tyler, not Ethan, who had spread the rumor about Jessica and me in high school. Really, he was such a troublemaker. I wish he could apologize, even now. Though Tyler was no longer with us, we fondly remembered and missed him despite our complaints. Mike, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. As the room began to grow somber, Ashley, the young restaurant owner with her long black hair tied up, came to greet us. She noticed my empty glass and, coming closer, gracefully offered to pour me a drink. "Oh, we're handling it ourselves." I gently declined, but she took a seat beside me regardless. Jessica clicked her tongue softly. The others were also disillusioned. "Ashley, a moment," I whispered in her ear before standing up and calling her to a corner of the room. "We're in the middle of something. Did I intrude?" When I apologized and lowered my head, she glanced over everyone before reluctantly leaving the room. "The food might be good, but the portions are so small, I can't really taste anything," I mumbled after we finished the course meal, and everyone agreed. Until then, they had been silent out of consideration for me, who had made the reservation. "How about leaving here and going to a casual bar nearby and have some normal snacks and drinks?" No one objected to Jessica's suggestion. Once we made up our minds, things moved quickly. We quickly left the private room and, with Ashley's polite smile sending us off, moved from the fancy restaurant to a casual bar. The restaurant is so popular that people have to be on a 3-year waiting list, but a bar suited us better than a restaurant. While reminiscing about old times, we drank and ate heartily. The dishes we ordered included classic potato salad and fries, salmon and potato skillet, potato tacos, and croquettes. How much do we love potatoes? Our mini reunion lasted until the last train. Only Jessica and I were left on the train home. We often took the same train home in high school. Being on the same train home was also taken as proof we were dating, wasn't it? I said, looking at Jessica's reflection in the train window that had turned mirror-like in the dark. "That's right. It was Tyler who spread that rumor." The reflection of her in the window nodded. "Tyler was determined to make us a couple for some reason. But then again, he told you that he liked you, didn't he?" This time, she didn't nod. "I heard it from him. He said he got rejected by Jess." "I didn't reject him or anything," she said in her usual argumentative tone, glaring at my reflection in the window. I looked away from the window and directly at her face. I didn't dislike Tyler, but we were always together with everyone, weren't we? So, she refused to single out anyone from our group for a romantic relationship. However, Tyler took this as her having feelings for me. Trying to play Cupid or just being a class clown, he spread rumors about us, attempting to set us up as a couple. He was really stupid. Really, that's true. The calls from Ashley, the young owner of the restaurant, continued even after that day. She still insisted she hadn't properly thanked me. No matter how much I said it was enough, she stubbornly repeated, "I won't be satisfied otherwise." She might have been very conscientious, but it was nothing but a nuisance for me. But because she meant no harm, it made it all the more difficult to deal with. So, I decided to let her treat me to lunch at some casual place on my day official. Ashley showed up in casual clothes with her hair down, just like the first time we met. We quickly entered an affordable chain restaurant. She was cheerful and satisfied throughout the lunch. Her father had dealt with that man, and there had been no trouble since then. When I told her I worked at a commercial kitchen equipment manufacturing plant, her face lit up, and she asked if I could arrange maintenance for her restaurant's kitchen. "I'll have our sales team take care of it," I responded. Then she quickly withdrew her request, saying, "If it won't count towards your achievements." We finished our meal in about an hour and left the restaurant before 2 p.m. As I thanked her for the meal, she seemed like she still wanted to take me somewhere else, asking, "Was this okay for you? Please, don't start with the 'I won't be satisfied otherwise' again." I prayed inwardly as I checked my phone. There was a missed call from Ethan during the meal. I listened to the voicemail immediately. "What? Jess has?" My exclamation made Ashley, who was next to me, widen her eyes in surprise. I excused myself, saying something urgent had come up, and rushed off. Jessica, had been injured and taken to the hospital. I hurried to the emergency hospital Ethan mentioned in his message. On the way, I couldn't help but remember that day 2 years ago. The day Tyler had his accident. It was Ethan who had informed me then, too. And just like now, I had rushed to the hospital. But by the time I arrived, Tyler was already gone. As I entered the hospital where Jessica was taken, I found all the mini reunion members gathered in the lobby. They had all been informed from Ethan's network. Jessica was there among them, leaning on crutches. Her injuries weren't as severe as I had feared. "Hey, Jess, you okay?" As I approached, Jessica stuck out her tongue sheepishly. It had happened earlier that day. She was on her way to her favorite salon to get a haircut, traveling alone by train. While standing near the train door, playing with her phone, she felt something moving around her waist. Looking down, she saw a man sticking close to her. Until then, she had been too engrossed in her phone to notice, but the train wasn't crowded, and the man's proximity felt unnatural. It was a molester. I thought it might be a misunderstanding, so I just watched for a while. But the man got bolder and started groping her more aggressively. Deciding there was no doubt about his intentions, she twisted his wrist. I shouted, "This man is molesting me." Just then, the train arrived at the station. As the doors opened, the molester stepped onto the platform. Not wanting to let him escape, Jessica chased after him and tackled him from behind. They scuffled on the ground. He was desperate, too. Kicked me, and I got thrown off, hitting my shin against a pole, cracking the bone. The molester was eventually detained by station staff and handed over to the police. "That's what you get for being reckless," I scolded her. "What could I do?" Jessica pouted in response. I argued that there was no need to chase after him once he fled. "What, so I should just let it go?" "It's not about letting it go. What if he had been more violent or had a weapon? It could have been more than just a cracked bone." Jessica turned her face away from me, clearly annoyed. "That guy, picking someone with such a strong-looking face like yours. Maybe he was just dazzled by my overwhelming charm. Were you flaunting your midriff or something?" Ethan and the others intervened as Jessica and I bickered. I felt ashamed for blurting out something I didn't mean. "What's with you, after making everyone worry so much?" "Sorry, thanks for coming all this way," Jessica said, lowering her head meekly. Every time we argued, one of us would end up apologizing, and that would be the end of it. That was typical for Jessica and me. But this time was different. "You came, but you were the last one to arrive, right, Mike?" "Oh, that's because It's not a complaint or anything. Just. Jessica gave me a probing look. I didn't notice the call. I stammered in response. It wasn't work today, right? She could see right through me. Were you on a date or something? Her intuition was always sharp. But it wasn't exactly a date. So I clarified. No, it's not exactly a date. Then I realized what I had implied. I had just given myself away. Sorry for interrupting. Say hi to your girlfriend for me. As we left the emergency hospital, Jessica said, "Thanks for coming on your day off," to everyone. She insisted she could go home alone, but since we were heading in the same direction, I decided to accompany her. She wanted to take the train to avoid unnecessary expenses, but on the way to the station, I hailed a taxi and we both got in. It was somewhat awkward. "Are you mad?" I asked tentatively. "Mad about what?" "I'm just reflecting on making everyone worry unnecessarily about me being late today. It wasn't a date," I explained, and she gave me an exasperated look. "Really, it wasn't a date?" "Look, Mike, whether you're dating or not doesn't matter to me. I'm just grateful you cared enough to come. After all, we were just old high school classmates bound by a long-standing connection." Was she trying to say it was nothing more and nothing less? But still, today wasn't a date, not at all. I wasn't satisfied. I didn't want Jessica to think I had been on a date with Ashley, the young owner of the restaurant. So, I shared with her the story of how I met Ashley, something I hadn't told anyone before. After hearing my story, Jessica, with a half-teasing smile, said, "Seems like you were quite pursued. Not entirely displeased, were you?" "Stop joking. I was really troubled," I protested. Jessica nodded quietly. A few evenings later, I had decided to make potato casserole for dinner, so after buying the ingredients on my way home, I hurried back. As I approached the familiar playground, I decided to take a shortcut through it. Cutting across the park would be faster. So, I veered off the path and headed towards the park. Right after that moment, "Ah, it's you." Right after I entered, a young man with both hands gripping a knife and squatting awkwardly blocked my path. I knew immediately who it was. It was the man who had been following Ashley. His hands were trembling as he held the knife. Even with my lack of confidence in physical confrontations, I felt I might be able to handle him. "I'm going to catch this guy." A surge of combativeness swelled up within me, and I took a step forward. But at that moment, my legs got tangled, and I fell forward dramatically. My dramatic fall surprised him too, causing him to drop the knife and fall on his rear. I jumped on the man, pinning him down, and shouted for help. A neighbor called the police, and the arriving officers took the man into custody. The man was indeed a former apprentice chef from Ashley's restaurant. Previously, I had stumbled upon him having a dispute with Ashley, and it ended up looking like I had come to her rescue. Since then, he had regarded me as an enemy. Not only did he harbor unrequited love for Ashley, but he also mistakenly believed I was a rival for her affections. His jealousy exploded after hearing that I had lunch with Ashley, leading to his attack. After giving my statement to the police, I was taken to the hospital. In the process of dramatically falling in front of the man, I ended up spraining one of my ankles. I was now dependent on crutches for a while. "You're one to talk about being reckless." Informed by Ethan's network, Jessica also came to visit, crutches in hand. I thought I could catch him. He was squatting and trembling, after all. What if he had been more dangerous than you thought and had used that weapon on you? It could have been more than just a sprain. Jessica had a point, but I was somewhat annoyed and turned away from her. "What's with you? Making everyone worry so much." When I heard Mike was attacked by a thug and got hurt, Jessica's voice trailed off as she sniffled. Turning to her, I saw her eyes red and brimming with tears. "I'm sorry." Jessica quietly wiped away her tears. Then she gave a silent nod. Normally, our arguments would end as soon as one of us apologized, even if it had escalated to a shouting match. But this time, seeing her tears, I couldn't just let it end there. I'll say it again, just to be clear, that last time wasn't a date. I told you, I don't care about that. Stop being so persistent. I'm not being persistent. I just want to make things clear. Fine, I'll let it slide then, Jessica said, crossing her arms and turning away. That sounds a bit grudging. What else should I say then? Imitating Ashley, I suggested. I won't be satisfied otherwise, maybe. Jessica then slowly turned her head and glared at me. I smiled back and said, if I were to go on a date, Jess would be my choice. I could tell Jessica was taken aback. Picking up my crutches, I proposed. How about a crutch date for both of us? It's impossible. I'm not confident I can walk properly, she replied. I'm not confident either, but that's okay, isn't it? We can just waddle along together. At my second smile, she shyly nodded her head in agreement. I really want to get to know you better. When a young woman I had just met earnestly pressed me, I was taken aback. But this encounter with her might have been a turning point in my life. Ever since meeting her, I felt as though I had returned to my younger days, spending enjoyable moments. It was a time I had longed for over and over again in my mind. But before I get into that story, let me first tell you about how we met. My name is John. I'm a workaholic and have been divorced for 15 years. It's not that I enjoy living a workaholic life. But without close friends or family, I kept working to forget the loneliness, and before I knew it, my life had become nothing but work. While having a beer alone in my room after work, I caught sight of a family photo displayed in the room. In the photo, me, 15 years younger, along with my ex-wife and our then 5-year-old daughter, all smiling. My ex-wife, Lisa, was 5 years younger than me. We met at a mixer I was invited to by a friend. Her attentiveness, careful listening, youthful laughter, and beautiful voice were all exactly my type. It was practically love at first sight. Somehow, I managed to get her contact information and we started dating. When she accepted my confession, I was so happy, feeling like I was the luckiest man in the world. Then, about a year into our relationship, Lisa told me she was pregnant. Of course, we were both careful about contraception, but it's not 100%, and my joy at having a child with the woman I loved outweighed my worries. However, her reaction worried me. I was 25 and already working, while she was just 20. Though she was of age, she was still a student. Of course, I wanted her to have the baby, but her life was important too, so I told her I wanted to prioritize her feelings. But Lisa, with a full smile, said, "If you're happy, I want to have the baby." If Lisa felt the same way, there was only one thing I needed to do. I went to both our families to ask for marriage and to announce a pregnancy. Lisa being a student, both families strongly opposed it. I repeatedly pleaded with our relatives. Lisa said, "You don't need to prostrate yourself. If they oppose, I'm prepared to cut ties with my family," but that was the last thing I wanted. I understood her parents' concerns for their still studying daughter all too well. The idea of Lisa severing ties with her family over the pregnancy broke my heart. I wanted our precious child to be born with everyone's blessings. After much discussion and time, when we finally received permission to marry, both Lisa and I had tears in our eyes. From then on, I threw myself into my work. I was determined not to let down the family I had gained, aiming to provide for Lisa and our child. But that was just my own selfishness. Lisa didn't just want me to earn money. She wanted to raise our child together. She wanted to share the joys of our child's growth and face challenges together. But I only realized this after our divorce. Our paths gradually diverged as I focused on work and Lisa wanted to cherish family time, leading to our separation. At the time of our divorce, our daughter, Emily, was only 5. She was eagerly looking forward to starting elementary school, her eyes sparkling at the sight of older kids with their backpacks. When we told her about the divorce, she vehemently opposed it. Though she might not have fully grasped what divorce meant, she understood that it would change our relationship and declared, "If you divorce, I'll never see you again, Dad," crying her heart out. I've been paying child support but hadn't seen my daughter since the divorce. Since the divorce was due to adult circumstances, Lisa and I agreed not to force our daughter to see me unless she wanted to. Of course, I want to see her. But I couldn't disregard my daughter's wishes any further after hurting her with the divorce. My daughter Emily will turn 20 this year. As long as she's doing well, that's all that matters to me. I send a letter to Lisa once a month, coinciding with when I make the child support payment. The letters are filled with trivial matters like is Emily doing well, and has she caught a cold? While I could send messages via phone or email, Lisa once said, "I feel that a letter written by someone themselves conveys more emotion than phone calls or emails." I have no intention of starting over. Even from afar, if my wish for Lisa and Emily's happiness gets through, I'd be happy. One day, amidst the monotony of everyday life, I met a woman. She seemed troubled by a man persistently talking to her in the middle of the street, but upon closer inspection, I was astonished, because she bore a striking resemblance to a young Lisa. That's why I intervened between the man and the woman. It's not right to persistently bother a woman who is clearly not interested. People are watching. The man seemed to realize he was being stared at by bystanders and quickly left, relieved that the situation didn't escalate. My relief was short-lived when suddenly, the woman I had helped grabbed my arm tightly and exclaimed, "Come with me." Caught off guard by the sudden request, she then firmly grabbed my arms with both hands and pressed, "I want to know more about you." Her face indeed resembled a young Lisa. I missed my chance to refuse, and she pulled me along into a nearby cafe. An old guy like me with a young woman. I felt uneasy about the suspicious look of the situation. Wondering why she had stopped me, she pulled out a photograph. It was the same family photo I had in my room. "This is you in the photo, right? How do you have this photo?" "It's of me and my family. I am the one in the picture." I stared at her, unable to fully grasp her words. Then she looked back into my eyes and said, "The child in this photo, that's me. You're my father, right?" I was shocked, but it made sense. That's why she looked so much like Lisa. Such a coincidence, I thought, but then Emily, no longer just a woman, slammed the table and said with the loudest voice I had heard all day, "I want you to persuade Mom." And just when I was surprised to meet my daughter, Emily dropped an even bigger bombshell. "I'm pregnant, by the way. Not married yet, but planning to." Emily is currently 20 years old. She said she would have graduated by the time of the birth, but she's still a student now. Her partner is a freelancer. They both want to have and raise the child, but Lisa hasn't given her blessing. Mom says, "You should graduate from school and work as a member of society first. You can have and raise children after that. You've never worked and are still a child, right? Do you think you can raise a child, even though I'm already an adult?" Emily explained. It was all too similar to when Lisa and I decided to marry. Despite facing so much opposition, our marriage only lasted 5 years, and after that, Lisa was left to raise our child alone. It must have been incredibly tough. Having married young and known the difficulties of raising a child, perhaps she couldn't easily agree to it. "I was wondering how to persuade her when I met you," Emily said. "But I've been divorced for 15 years now and wasn't able to help with raising you. I have no right to say anything," I replied. That's exactly why you should listen to me. Your daughter's request now. Persuade Mom, Emily insisted. I couldn't come up with a response and ended up being dragged to Lisa and Emily's home. The name on the door plate hadn't changed. Even though Lisa and I had no relationship anymore, I felt relieved to know she hadn't remarried. Seeing Lisa after so long, she had aged gracefully. Then, seeing me, her eyes widened in surprise. Why are you two together? Have you been in touch? Feeling awkward, I looked down and said, we just happened to meet. I didn't recognize her, but Emily approached me. I was surprised to run into you too. I had only ever seen you in photos, so it was a shock to see you there. But I thought this could be a chance to talk to Mom. What's going to change by me talking to her? Emily seemed a bit angry at Lisa's words. After all, you two overcame everyone's objections to get married when you were 20, right? Just like me now. Why are you only opposing me when you both got married and had a child? Lisa sighed deeply. It's not about me. I'm opposing because I think you're still a child, and raising a child would be impossible for you. Whether you bring him or your father here, my mind won't change. Hearing Lisa's dismissive tone, Emily stormed out of the house. An awkward silence lingered between Lisa and me. I could understand both of their points of view, but I felt there was more to Lisa's objections. Lisa touching her arm while talking was a habit she had when she wanted to say something but was holding back or swallowing her words. You haven't changed, I said. Lisa gave a small laugh. That's a lie, I've changed. It's been 15 years, I've gotten older. Not at all, you haven't changed, neither your appearance nor your habits. Habits. I explained about her habit of touching her arm to a puzzled Lisa. She seemed completely unaware of it herself. Is there another reason? I asked. You can still tell, even after 15 years, she admitted. That makes sense. After all, we were truly married, even if it was for a short time. It's not just because she's young that I'm opposing. Even after getting married and becoming a single parent, I had support from my family. Pregnancy, childbirth, working and raising a child, you need someone to support you. Just as I was about to say that Lisa was there for Emily, she revealed something shocking. I have breast cancer. What? I haven't told her yet. The surgery should help, but there's a high chance of recurrence. If I'm gone, she'll be alone, right? Raising a child is hard without help, and it'll be hard to rely on the in-laws. And what if she gets divorced? I'm worried if she can manage to work and raise a child without any work experience. I don't know when I'll be gone. So I ended up wishing she would give up on the baby for now, finish school, and build a foundation for living as a working adult. I know it's unfair to the baby, but my daughter is the most important to me. Even knowing her illness, she was worried about Emily's future. Her feelings painfully reached me. I'm really sorry for making you bear everything alone all this time. No, you've always thought about us, continued to pay child support. You tried to be there for us. Aren't all these letters proof? But I was stubborn, wanting to raise our daughter on my own. I didn't reply, I'm sorry. Saying that, Lisa brought out a stack of stationery from the back room. They were the letters I had sent to Lisa. Knowing she had read them warmed my heart. Moreover, the stacks of stationery weren't just mine. There were letters written by Lisa mixed in as well. These. Did you write these? Then she replied shyly. Yeah, actually, I was writing a reply every month, but my pride got in the way, and I couldn't send them. I kept them together with your letters. I read each of her unsent replies. They revealed aspects of Lisa and Emily I didn't know, and I was moved to tears. Lisa, too, was teary-eyed. I regret that we divorced without really talking. Back then, I was too focused on my own feelings. Even though I knew you were working hard for us, I'm sorry. There's no need for you to apologize. I was the one who neglected family time for work. Now older, I understood what was lacking back then. We talked a lot, as if making up for the past 15 years. about Emily's school, her hobbies, Lisa's part-time job, our parents. It was like we had gone back to our younger days, enjoying a pleasant time together. It was at that moment. Suddenly, the sound of the front door opening rang out, followed by a loud "Excuse me for intruding." A young man walked into the living room, with Emily following behind him. "Nice to meet you. I'm Alex. I'm here today to ask for your blessing to marry Emily. Please allow me to marry her." And then, he suddenly knelt down. Emily, standing behind him, murmured in a soft voice, "I even said I'd elope." Alex continued from where he left official. While still kneeling, Alex raised his voice. "I absolutely don't want to let that happen. I love Emily. I want to give the woman I love a marriage that is blessed by her family. I couldn't hold it in anymore." Lisa seemed to feel the same way, and both of us burst out laughing simultaneously. "Ha ha ha. Come on, you shouldn't laugh so much. Ha ha." Emily and Alex were dumbfounded, not understanding why Lisa and I were laughing. Lisa and I were reminded of the same thing. The time when I proposed to Lisa and knelt down just like Alex. "Hey, Lisa, surely, two people in love will marry no matter what others say. If so, let's support them in building a happy home. I want to be there for my daughter. This time, I want to support her together with you." Indeed, that might be true. We divorced, but because of that marriage, we have Emily. I don't regret getting married at all. Take good care of her, Alex. While saying this, Lisa was touching her arm. Since she had been opposed to it, she couldn't immediately agree to the marriage. Still, I believe she wanted to support us, listening to the words of me, Emily, and Alex, and suppressing her desire to object. Despite her reservations, she decided to support us for Emily's happiness. Later, when Lisa revealed her illness, Emily shed big tears. Even if it's said to be curable, the uncertainty must be scary. But Lisa looked composed. "Mom, why are you so calm? Aren't you scared of your illness?" "I'm not scared now. It's all right. You don't need to worry about anything. Just focus on preparing for childbirth. You have Alex, and I have people to support me." Saying that, Lisa looked at me, and I nodded firmly. I had decided to support Lisa and our daughter, making up for the time we were apart. Over a year has passed since then, and my daughter and her husband are living happily with their child. Lisa's surgery was successful, and she's in good health. Our relationship isn't that of lovers or a married couple, but something more than friends, partners. I'm comfortable with our current relationship, but I'm starting to think about becoming lovers again. But our lives will continue, and whether we're lovers or remain as partners, we can be together. I want to take my time and talk with Lisa about where our relationship is headed.